Hello, and welcome to the Xilinx Quick Take video, where we will cover how to use the new configuration dialog and to set and edit device properties. This Quick Take assumes you have the basic knowledge of the Vivado flow. Please see the Quick Takes titled Vivado Design Flows Overview if you need more information on using the Vivado flow. By the end of the session, you should be able to utilize the configuration dialog for setting and editing device properties. So let's get started. We will start off by defining device properties. What is a device property in Vivado, and what does it mean to set and edit these properties? We will then look at the methodology around setting this, and this is where the Vivado flow comes into picture. We will guide you through some best practices for setting device properties in the Vivado flow. We will then summarize the key points and then move to a demonstration of the configuration dialog to see in this practice. First of all, let's start by defining device properties. Device properties are Xilinx Design Constraints, or XDC, based properties applied on the device model that influences the generated bit stream. The methodology around running DRC can be summarized into 4 simple steps. First, always set up device constraints in the synthesis phase. This is an extremely important point to note when working in the IDE. In order to ensure that the constraints are being read correctly in the flow, Xilinx recommends setting the device properties in the synthesis phase itself. Doing this in the implementation phase may not produce expected results. Second, save device constraints to an implementation constraint in SDC. Changing constraints will always make the constraints go out of date. So, device constraints should not affect synthesis, and this is why it is best to put this in an implementation XDC. Run report DRC after all device constraints have been applied. Always run report DRC before proceeding forward. Report DRC can usually identify any issues in the settings ahead of time, and running this step will save significant time. Ensure a clean DRC before proceeding to implementation. Before moving to the implementation phase, the DRC should be completely clean, or bitstream generation will not complete. Now let's demonstrate how this works using the Xilinx Vivado design tools. First, let's set up a new constraints file. Click on the Add Sources, select Add or Create Constraints, and click on Next. Now click on Create File. Let's name the file bitstream_settings. Hit OK, then Finish. Now let's expand to view the new constraints file we created. We click on the plus signs for the constraints, and find the new file we created. Now we need to change this file to a target file. Right-click on the file and select Set as Targets Constraint File. Next, we need to make this an implementation-only file. So right-click on the file and select the Used In setting. Now uncheck the synthesis selection. So now we can open the synthesized design. Due to the target constraints changing, we'll have to resynthesize the design. Now that the design has been synthesized, we can click on Open Synthesized Design. Now let's edit the device properties. So go to Tools and Edit Device Properties. Let's start by enabling bitstream compression. We can change the setting to True. Notice that when you hover over the value, it shows the actual XDC property that will be set. Now I'll hit OK to dismiss this dialog. And now when we look at the Tickle console, we can see that the command is issued. Now let's reopen the dialog and do some more edits. First, let's see what happens if you make a mistake. Let's go to the Startup tab and change the startup clock from C clock to JTAG clock. Now this is not what we wanted, so we need to undo. Clicking on the Undo All will undo the operations made in this invocation of the dialog. This is why when we go back to the General tab, the bitstream compression is still enabled. Now let's set some more properties. Let's change the Configuration tab and set configuration voltage to 1.8. We will also set the configuration bank voltage selection to GND as well. Let's set the configuration mode to Select Map X8. Search for a select map in the search window. And notice we have two selections, and the first one is not the one we want. We can easily switch to the second tab. Now we can scroll down and see the select the X8 setting highlighted. So let's select this. The selection is shown with the yellow highlighted color. We also want to prohibit these pins, so let's select the checkbox for prohibiting the usage of these configuration pins. Notice that even in the I/O planner view, there are circles with a cross through it to show that these pins are prohibited for the configuration mode that has been selected. We can also search for persist to ensure that the correct properties are set as part of our selection in the configuration modes tab. Now we'll hit OK. And the next step is to run DRC to ensure that there are no violations. Now that we have a DRC clean design, we can save these constraints to the XDC. Note that until you save the constraints will not persist. The constraints need to be saved from memory to the XDC file. So let's click on the File, Save Constraints. This will ensure that the constraints are now saved to your XDC file. Let's confirm that they did get saved. First, we switch to the Constraints tab, then we can double-click on the bitstream settings.xdc. This will open up the viewer. We can see that the 5 constraints we typed showed up here. There's also another constraints file in design, so let's see what that has. When we open this file, we can see it contains pin constraints as well as timing constraints. These constraints do matter for synthesis and implementation. And this is why we created a separate one for our bitstream settings. Now let's implement the design. After the implementation is complete, we click the Open Implemented Design and close out the other design so we can just view this one. Now we need to ensure that there are still no DRC violations, so let's click on Report DRC to confirm this. Now we're ready to generate the bitstream, so let's just click on Generate Bitstream. And let's view the reports. We scroll down to the right bitstream step, then click on the implementation log. The easiest one for us to check is the compression setting, so let's search for the term compression. As we can see, the compression has been enabled, and thus the changes we made were included in the final bitstream. Summarizing the key takeaways. Remember to always set up device properties in the synthesis phase. Run DRC before proceeding to implementation, and save properties to an implementation constraints file. Thank you for watching.